Hi everyone, welcome to Sacred Soulful Sundays. My name is B. Pila, and let's get into this week's session. I want to see if we could do a little bit of an exercise that we all are able to discern between knowing, trusting what is real and true for us within, okay? Because the goal of our awakening and the goal of us being connected to source is to be able to discern between what is coming in truthfully from you and your soul versus what is coming from your ego and your head. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have in being human beings. You know, when we're not in this physical form, it's very easy. we don't have that disconnect. But when we are, and that's where we are right now, and we chose this avenue of expression, we have to plug in. You know, we literally, it's like a device. You know, it doesn't work if it's not plugged in. Okay. And another great metaphor that we have is with our phones not being connected to Wi-Fi, right? It's the most frustrating thing is to not be connected to your Wi-Fi, right? You know, immediately you're like, oh, it's not coming through, right? So, you know, when the message is, you know, buffering or when it's loud and crystal clear. So what is the difference between that voice in our head that is what we would call the ego, and what is it, when is that voice clearly coming from our higher self? First, I want to go back a little bit, and I want you to do a little mini visualization with me, okay? First, let's take a deep breath together, because breath is life and breath is connection. So first, take a moment, settle yourself, and take a nice, long, deep breath. Let it all out. And kind of relax your shoulders, relax your neck, relax your body. Connect. Okay, so I want you to just imagine when your life started, when you came in as a child, without all of the conditioning that we receive as we get older. As a little child, what was the joy, the purity that you enjoyed? Were you an expressive child? Were you extroverted? Or were you the kind of child that would like to sit quietly playing by yourself? Were you rambunctious and running around? Did you like to craft and build things? Did you feel you were more on the artistic side? Or did you like to dance or sing or paint? What did your little child, the little you, enjoy the most? What made you completely turn on and be your authentic self? Be with that for a moment. Remember that. The reason that I ask you to go there is because that is you. That is the real you. That is the real you before anyone told you to be anything else. And that was beautiful. And that was pure. And that is your essence. The essence that you came here with. That is your true highest self. That is the one that came to be expressed. Whatever that was, whether it was running around, throwing balls, dancing, singing, whatever that was, that is the essence of your authentic self. If you have a journal, if you have anything to write with, write down what that might have been or what that was. For me, I found the most joy in being expressive. I love to dance. I learned to love to be on stage. I loved to write and speak and communicate. In fact, my mom says that I started speaking before, you could see me over a counter. So I was always talkative, right? So that's the essence of who I am. That's the joy side of me. Now, as we get older, we start layering on top all of the conditions that we have to use to adapt to society. And it's a beautiful thing to watch my granddaughters growing up here in my home, because I can see their essence every day without inhibitions, without the conditions. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when we are out of alignment with that essence of who we are, there's a disconnect between the truth that comes through us and what is not truth. And when we start acting in a way that is conditioned by the outside versus what is coming from the inside, we get out of alignment, and we cannot listen to our hearts and our higher self. And we go to plan B, which is our heads, which has a tendency to be from the ego place. Now, I've taught many, many times that there's a split between our emotions, right? That there's only two emotions, right? We know this lesson. It's my first basic lesson. My first basic lesson ever is to teach you that there are only two emotions. One, and all that is based on fear is on the negative side of the spectrum, right? Everything that is based on love is on the positive side of the spectrum. Whenever you are trying to prove yourself, you're in a state of fear. Okay. The next letter is P for protect. When you are trying to protect yourself, hence you get defensive, right? You put on your defensive armor. You are in a state of reaction as well, and you are in a state of fear. So this comes from your head and not your heart, because there is nothing to fear when you are in your heart, right? Now, of course, the world can be hard, and that's why we wind up in this state when we lose that childlike innocence that is our essence. When we start getting protective of it, right? Usually it's because something has occurred that has hurt us, and we don't like the way that feels. So we start protecting, okay? That's the second P. Then there's the state which a lot of us fall into, and that's perfection. When we think we must be perfect. When we start to think of ourselves as perfectionists, and we, as women, we do this a lot. We want to be perfect in the eyes of the world, the perfect hair, the perfect makeup, the perfect outfit, the perfect shoes, the perfect response, the perfect everything, when we get into a state of perfectionism, we are disconnected and we are in a state of fear. Okay. And then last but not least, when we are in pleasing mode, that's the fourth P. When we want to please others and we negate or don't listen to our true feelings, you know, when we want to do something just from a state of pleasing, we are in a state of fear. So you see how all of those energies are separate and different from that childlike state that is so innocent that they don't care if they're spinning around and getting dizzy and falling to the ground, right? Think of a little kid just like, oh, everything is perfect in my life. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I don't need to protect myself from others. I don't need to be perfect for you, you know? I don't need to please you. I can just please myself. You see the difference? You see how that feels when you are in a state of that innocent, complete purity of childlike innocence? The ego steps out of the way, right? So when you are in that mode, you are in a state of fear. And anything that has an emotion that is connected to fear doesn't feel good and is separating us from our higher self. So there's a disconnect. And the greater that disconnect, the worse our emotions are. Okay? The more we feel out of sorts, and the less we can listen to our higher self. Now, there's a tip to talking to your higher self. And this is literally something I want you to start practicing. In your mind, you can literally say, speak to it by name, higher self. How do I really feel about this? Like, just call it out. Like you're talking to your friend. It's like, Deb, how do you really feel about this? It's like, it's your friend inside of you. And you can speak to it. Okay? Because when we are in those fear-based states that are proving to others, protecting ourselves, pleasing, and being perfectionists, we cut off that communication. So on the other side of the coin, on the love side of the coin, I want you to feel the emotions of these words that I'm going to give you now, which are all C words. Okay? These are your acronyms to remember. So just like I said, the 4 P words, you can ask yourself, am I trying to prove myself? Am I trying to protect myself? Am I trying to be perfect? Am I trying to please? So the C words are the opposite side of the spectrum. They're on the love side, and they are connected directly to our heart center, our heart chakra. Okay? These are not in our heads. This is in here. Number 1, C word, is create. When we are in creation, okay, we are in a state of love. In fact, you cannot create from a state of fear. I challenge you to try it. How many times have you sat to write something down, right? Let's say an email, right? You want to write this email. And if you are in a state of defensive, protective, proving mode, what comes out? Pretty crappy stuff. And it's the kind of stuff that you don't want to press send, because if you press send, you're going to be in trouble. Okay? Because on the receiving end, there is no place to hide. You can see it through those words. I love that Florinda, whenever she writes something, she says, send with love, boop, and presses send. Because you can feel it, right? You can feel it when a text comes in that sounds like, right? We have become writers in our society, right? We hardly speak anymore. You know, when I started my business, the phone would ring all the time. Now the phone doesn't ring anymore. It's the weirdest thing ever. People don't call people, right? We text, we write emails. But what has happened with that is that the emotion, hence why emojis exist, right? Emojis exist because it's like, I don't want you to think that this is like I'm angry, right? I want you to think that I'm happy. And then, is it authentic? Like, right? You know, are we really being authentic when we send that? Right? We send, I really don't want to go there. Right? Is it real? I'm not sure, right? Do you think that we're fooling anybody? I don't know. We can put an emoji there, but is it real? And this is what I'm saying, that there's a wave of energy through the words, right? And we're sensitive to that. I think we're more sensitive now than ever, right? It's almost like the tone of your voice. I mean, how many of you have pets? You know, if you have a dog or you have an animal, right? Do they understand language? No. What they understand is emotion, right? So when you speak to an animal and you tell them, you could be saying, right? And what are they seeing? The emotion of happiness. Now, if you're looking at them like, right? You could be saying whatever, but they get emotion. So your emotions are coming through and you need to know where they're coming from. Are they coming from your head or are they coming from your heart? So continuing on the heart spectrum, number one word, which is the C word, is create. When we are in creative mode, we are in love. It's automatic. That is why I know myself as a creator. You want to make me happy? Let me create. Any kind of creation makes me happy. Creativity is my juice, right? That's who I am in my essence. The second C word is when we are contributing. Contribution, in fact, that's why when we are being charitable, generous, giving, anything that falls under the C word of contributing makes us feel good. Because at our core, we are tribal human beings. We need people. We can be introverts, we can like our time alone, but at the end of the day, if we do not belong to a tribe of some sort, we feel out of sorts. This is the truth of who we are. We are contributors. When we feel that we have given something back, we're in a state of high vibrational love. So contribution is a different energy than proving ourselves, protecting ourselves, right? Do you feel the difference between that? And the reason I'm getting to these words is because I want you to feel them inside of you. When I say prove, doesn't that sound really hard? Like it's an efforting kind of thing, right? When you are efforting, you're not in a state of love. When you are contributing, now, how does that feel to you? When I say contribute, doesn't that feel good? It feels positive. It feels, yes, I'm contributing, right? And then the next C word is connect. We love to feel connected. It's our state of bliss when we are connected, connected to ourselves, connected to others, connected to source. The more connected we are, the better we feel. This is from our heart. When we connect with another, we are in a good place. We are in our heart. Okay? And then lastly, the last C word is cultivate. When we are cultivating, when we are creating, when we are giving, okay, when we are growing, we are in our heart. This is our natural state. These states of emotion are that little child that you visualized when I asked you to tap in to the beginning of you, to the essence of you, before the layers of the BS that gets thrown on top of us. Okay? So when you are able to discern, and this is what you need to be able to do, is discern between those two energies. Remember that I've always said that emotions are energy in motion. Okay? So they are two sides of the coin. They're the fear-based coin and the love-based coin. But they're one coin. They are you. This is your compass. So when you are able to discern, when you get to a state of observance, when you can separate from yourself and be able to say, okay, I'm in defensive mode. I can tell. I'm protecting myself. This is my ego saying, okay, something's hurting me. When you're in that state, you are able to get through the understanding to trust your emotions. And this was the point. The point is to be able to trust that what you're feeling is true. When you're in a childlike innocent state, when you're a little kid, you trust, right? You trust that everything is going to be fine and there's nothing to fear. There's where we want to be. I know it's hard because life happens and shit happens and it comes at us really hard. But if we're able to stay in a place of love, by default, what comes back to us energetically is love. This is the ideal. The ideal is that we're projecting love and that we're receiving love. This is the best place to be. We know this, right? It's where we feel at our best. It's where we produce at our best. And it is where we are in our best essence. So how many of you felt clear about how you were when you were a child? Does anybody want to share something?
Well, remember when we used to play pretend? Before cell phones, before Legos, before, right? Before all the electronics, we played pretend. And
Right.
sometimes we didn't have a physical toy in our hand. We would say, oh, let's pretend school. Let's pretend house. Let's pretend, right? And it was so fun.
Doctor and nurse when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Is that
I don't know about that one.
It's a different, but yeah, it was a different world, and we got to communicate and connect with others because we didn't have the physical toys. We just made it up with our imagination. Wow, what a concept.
Imagination is actually the greatest form of creation. We are, one of the things that is so spectacular, thank you, Evelyn, for sharing that. One of the things that is so spectacular about being a human being is that we have our imaginations. Like we can imagine ourselves in any state of being we would like. We can play any movie in our minds and imagine it, right? Now, when we have a connection of emotion to that imaginary state, that is the spark of manifestation. When we believe what we've created in our minds, we are able to manifest it. And only when you are in that state can you fulfill the manifestation. Yes, Mom?
When you said that, I remember as a kid, there was a tree right next to the house. I remember myself climbing the tree.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yes. And you know, this is the simple stuff that we forget. We forget that the joy that there was in just maybe climbing that tree and feeling like, oh my God, I'm up here. I could do this. This is fantastic. You connected to something that is so simple and yet brings you so much joy. What happens is that we get stuck in all of the conditioning and all the things that we're supposed to be. But when you feel that you're getting onto that treadmill of supposed to be, stop, take a pause, and go back to being your child. And go back to your essence. We are doing something that is not what we really, really are. And we can only do this for so long, right? This is what happens. That person eventually will get sick, will not be able to be well, because it's like fitting a square peg into a round hole. What's really, really spectacular about being a human being is that there's no one else like you. There's no one. That's it. They broke the mold. After you were created, there is no other. And only you have the gifts and talents that you have. That perfect combination that is meant to express itself. Okay? And that is who you really are, your authentic being. So whatever it is that brings you that level of joy is right for you. And when you are stepping out of that state, you are in a state of resistance to your true self, to your higher self, to your greatest purpose. Sometimes it seems impossible, but it isn't. And even if you think that your one little thing doesn't make a difference, it does. It does. So I invite you to start taking a moment every time you feel that you are going down that path of protecting and proving and perfecting, and take those 3 deep breaths and connect. Practice it if you can. Let me say 3 times a day, once when you wake up in the morning, midday, end of day, maybe before you go to bed. Take a moment and say, how do I feel today? How am I feeling? Am I okay? Am I feeling connected to my higher self? And one of the best ways, that's why gratitude journals are so good, because when we are in a state of gratitude, you can't be in a state of fear. It's kind of like you cannot feel those 2 emotions at the same time. When you are thankful, grateful, and in appreciation, by default, all of the negative emotions fall back. So whenever you say the word thank you and fill in that blank, thank you, you can't be in a state of fear. It's an amazing tool, and it immediately connects you to your higher self, because that's your natural state of being. Your natural state of being is in appreciation, in gratitude, in love, in connection, in contribution. That's your natural state. That's the state you were born with. That is your birthright. We just forget along the way. And we let others that might not be in that state start tuning us to them. What if you are the tuning fork of love for them? And then if you run into those people that they just don't make the shift, then you can choose to separate from that because it's not good for you. You don't want to resonate with that. You want to resonate in an energy of love because it's very draining to try to constantly change that for others. They're going to get there at some point, but it's not your job to do it for them if they can't make that shift. So I hope this was helpful. I hope my 4 P's and my 4 C's will help you to think about this during the week and notice what state you're in. Practice the breathing technique because it's so simple. It's so easy, but we forget. Catch yourself when you're holding your breath. That's a telltale sign that you've fallen into the ego trap. Okay? Take a deep breath. Say thank you. Thank you for anything that you could be grateful for, which there's so many things to be grateful for. And you'll see that your vibration will shift over to your heart. And if you can stay in your heart, I guarantee you that all of the energy that comes to you in that wave of receiving will be connected there as well. Hope you enjoyed what we talked about today. And if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. We love to hear what you have to say.